Phil, when you look at the summer window and the activity, Atleti yet again being very busy, spending over 100 million euros to try and get this thing over the line. Last season, getting to a Copa, final, Copa del Rey final, losing to Real Sociedad, also falling short in the UEFA Champions League semifinal, I believe, to Arsenal. So how much pressure is there on Cholo Simeone this campaign, given how much money has been spent?
Yeah, it was the same as last season. I mean, last season they spent loads of money, made some really high-profile signings, and they finished 25 points behind Barcelona. Atletico Madrid have to compete. They don't have the obligation to win La Liga every season like Real Madrid and Barcelona do. But they have to compete. And in the league, they did not compete last season, as we said, ending up 25 points behind. That's because they prioritized the cups, but then they didn't win either of those cups either. And that Copa del Rey final defeat to Real Sociedad was monumentally damaging to Atletico Madrid and Diego Simeone, because if you win a bit of silverware, then you've got some silverware to grab onto. But they didn't. There's pressure on him in so much as people want to win, but there's not pressure as in he's going to lose his job if they don't win, because he's got a job for as long as he wants the job. He is not going to be fired from Atletico Madrid. He will walk away when he feels like he can't get anything more out of the squad. But I heard him speak before kickoff today. He said, "No, okay, I'm here again. I'm excited. New season. I'm ready to go." So he seems up for it. And I wasn't too high on Atletico Madrid, it has to be said. I've been thinking about it the last few days, and I've been thinking maybe these signings, they're not quite as headline-catching as some of the other signings they made in previous years. Maybe these are signings that could improve the squad in a more nuanced way. And if Kangin Lee can perform, I think he can be a big signing. That's a big if, by the way, because I actually tipped him to be my flop signing of the summer on Morning Footy when we were talking about this a few days ago. So I'm doing a 180 here. But I think that he's a player. If he improves his numbers, and his numbers are poor in La Liga. This was his 112th game in La Liga and his 10th goal. For someone that talented, those numbers need to improve. If they do improve, he could be a key player for Atleti in La Liga. But like I said, it's a big if, because what we've seen previously from him in La Liga doesn't necessarily lead me to believe it's going to happen.
Yeah, Phil, we have talked about in the past. Mike, you heard Phil's take. First of all, I'm not sure you can really take much from the performance before some of the heavy hitters check in, right? I mean, Marcos Llorente doesn't come in until just into the second half. You had, of course, Lee Kang-in checking in, Alex Baena. Those were all later on. What did you make of what we saw, though? Because it was never going to be an incredible performance, I think. But at the same time, 2-0, 3 points, you say, job well done.
Yeah, coming off a World Cup, it's all about getting results and getting players up to speed. And this is a big season for some of the new players that have come into the club. You go back to 12 months ago, Atleti spent big in the summer window, and the majority of those players were a flop. I look at players like Thiago Almada. I thought he was a bust. So many players you go through that have come in, except for Adamo Lukman, that was a slam dunk. You saw his performances against Barcelona last campaign in Copa del Rey and Champions League. He was a Barcelona killer against that high line. Going through today's lineup, there are some players that are getting their debut. Now, Phil mentioned Dominguez, a historic moment for him, becomes the youngest player to represent Atleti in Spanish football's top flight. One player I want to give flowers to is Arnau Ortiz, who comes in and gets his debut. I thought he was solid, doing the little things that young players need to do to get the crowd and the fans on your side. One player that I thought is going to be so important for Atleti, he missed 14 matches last campaign, Pablo Barrios. To see him come to life when some of the new players came in, to see him linking up with Kang-in Lee, to see him linking up with Alex Baena, Atleti fans will want to see more of that moving forward. The schedule is not kind to them, but Cholo Simeone won't care one bit because when they get the likes of Cuti Romero back in the team, then we'll know it's full-blown heavy metal football.
I mean, did you see that bench? They're never going to field that 11 again the entire season. And they still got all 3 points. So Atleti could have a year to remember, but there's a lot of football still to be played.